Welcome back to the Torque Test channel. We don't typically test a lot of square drive ratchets around here because we don't tend to break a lot of those these days, at least in 3/8 and especially half-inch drive. But a whole lot of our viewers have been asking us to try out the new Icon Gen 2 ratchets, and many saying they're not just similar or similarly good, but basically the same thing for less dough. And when checking them out in store, they appear to range from long to stupid long, even in 3/8 drive, affording you more leverage than ever to potentially bust these into pieces. So we bought their flex head and latest long polish grip Gen 2 ratchets just out, as well as new flex head and extra long snap-on. Plus, we'll span much of the prices towards the top in ratchets with some KTC Nepros Japan and Gearwrench Taiwan to see if Harbor Freight can play with some of the top shelves that they claim to be comparing to, as ratchets these days can cost more than you might remember if you've not bought one of these recently. All of these somehow total $680 for these ratchets. We'll even take a look at if you can swap snap-on internals right over into these Icon ratchets due to how similar they are, and we'll be measuring quite a few things along the way, including, of course, these meeting Push-ER wrench-turning robot to see just how similar or dissimilar some of these designs are at the end of the day. Up first is the latest Icon Gen 2 ratchet available at our store, the 20-inch long 3/8 standard non-flex head that we bought for $60. Made in Taiwan, and it's 80 tooth. The handle style itself is very snap-on in that it is a bit small. Your hand goes over the grip, and well, truthfully, especially on this fixed head, pretty much everything is a lot like the snap-on on this. We bought this USA made FHLL 80 snap-on. It's also 80 tooth ratchet, which retails for a full $195 due to its XL length, mostly with their pricing sort of ordering. That length being 18.5 inches. Icon adding an inch or so on purpose, most likely. On top of that, your snap-on dealer likely isn't charging you retail prices, though you can also find Icon stuff on discount. They both have sales. The head design, taper, forward reverse switch, faceplate, screws through that faceplate are all a lot like the snap-on by no accident, I'm sure. Not all of it exact though. The snap-on measures 30.42 millimeters wide, and the Icon's a tiny bit wider, 30.85. It's the thickness though that mainly comes into play, 14.11 on the snap-on versus 15.5. This all makes for, when you find the volume of the head, how much space it takes up, a 21.9 cc sized head versus a 19.6 cc smaller snap-on head. A somewhat noticeable difference in person, mainly due to that thickness. You'll also notice some difference in the ratcheting mechanism to the ear, just at pure sound level. The snap-on sounds a lot more smooth, but hard to say if it feels that way or if it's just your ear telling you that. We cycle these about 100 times forward and 100 times reverse, as we usually do for ratchets before this type of test to break them in. Then measure their back drag, something that ranges from somewhat annoying to making a tool downright useless in some cramped spaces if you don't have much swing available to you, just wiggling this thing back and forth when it's too high a back drag. For reference, 1 to 2 would be like perfect, 7 to 8's not great, 9 to 10's was bad. The snap-on measures about 4 in one direction and 4 in the other direction. It feels very smooth. The flex head we bought coming up does the same. In fact, it registers a 4 on the snap-on as well. Both Icons we bought are also measuring the same, which is a good thing for consistency and also a good thing because this is very smooth. 4 in one direction and a 5 in the other direction every time, for an average of 4.5 for Icon and a 4 for the snap-on, lower being better. Very close indeed. The Icon sounds maybe 2 to 3 times louder, not loud compared to most, but the snap-on is just very quiet, if that factors for you at all. Let's head to Pushy, the wrench dyno. This thing looks and sounds pretty darn smooth. It's still all shiny. I take no pleasure in this, but it's in the name of science, and we will be rebuilding pretty much all of these where we can coming up. The snap-on really gets up there, as you might hope, of course, and it's going to give up the ghost at 379.7 newton meters. That's 280 foot-pounds, pretty darn high for a 3/8. Even a extra long one you'll be able to crank on. The anvil sheared off cleanly with no compromise apparent from that ball to tent hole. So how does that compare to the new Gen 2 Icon ratchets that are trying to compare to exactly what we just showed, with another 1.5 inches of leverage on hand? The Harbor Freight gets way up there into the 300s, mid 300s, upper 300s, and 400s even, it's going to see 419.7 Newton meters. That's 310 foot-pounds. Getting into the 300s in stateside units, that's definitely a bit of a milestone for a 3/8 drive tool in any form. Didn't break in the same way as the Snap-on. It simply skips teeth now at anything over like 20 foot-pounds. Not as easy to repair as a sheared anvil, but also as Harbor Freight, there's usually not a lot of repairing going on. Most people are swapping it over the counter. Time to see if that was a fluke, how consistent these tools are, including a couple additional brands. Look at Arc Swing and then finally take these two 80 tooth guys apart to compare and even to see if we can swap some parts between them. This is the new Icon Gen 2 locking flex head 3/8 we bought for 70 bucks. So it's a bit more, and this is the longest they offer at the moment, 14 inches, maybe saving that flex head joint some pain there. We're in agreement here. This comfort grip is an improvement over their Gen 1 Icon. It's pretty nice. We're split, however, preferring the Snap-on versus this Icon on the comfort grip. One has this palm bulge and the other is more tapered. They're both quite good. You might have a preference, but I think it would be pretty close for you. On the polished handles, the Icon seems, it fits a bit better. We're of course in the nonsense opinion portion of this episode, so feel free to ignore that. So yes, in the locking flex head, which this Icon comes in, is cool. It's also not a design borrowed from Snap-on, though Icon is on the roll with borrowing it from somewhere in most cases. A lot like this USA-made Matco, in fact, that I use pretty often. This is my own favorite type of locking flex head joint. Not in love with Snap-on's versions. Again, that's just personal preference. But even this Matco from the days of shared Danaher brand ownership with Gearwrench, you can find this design already out of Taiwan in the form of Gearwrench. This is their 84 tooth locking flex head that was only 45 bucks. We included to ensure we had a classic, good Taiwan Gearwrench example in the mix. Icon did, I think, objectively better here at this locking flex head joint than this Gearwrench, which is both a bit sloppy and floppy when locked and loose even more so. The Icon is much more similar to the USA Matco, which is to say, good. The Gearwrench is the thinnest in the head on the day at 12.2 millimeters, but also the widest. It comes in at 20.3 cc's in head volume, close to the Snap-on, smaller than the Icon. At least when comparing to the fixed head Snap-on. This is the flex head 3/8 Snap-on, the FLF80A that we bought, and it comes in at 11.5 inches in this case. This is their standard flex head, our preferred of theirs, and still it retails for $174.50, and the head size is a bit bigger than their non-flex head. It's 21.6 cc's now. Other than that, it is a lot like their extra long fixed head that we've been looking at. So moving on to the new KTC Nepros Japan. Everyone, not just our viewers, in my own life has been telling me I need to buy a Nepros Ratchet. Well, this isn't mine really, it's the channel's now for however long it's gonna last. This is their long 90 tooth flex head 3/8 we bought for $145. And man, they ain't playing around with the presentation on this thing, well, or its appearance, the appearance of the tool, the fit and finish, and yeah, how it feels as well. Buying one of these will turn you into a fanboy pretty quick once you pick up one of these. It's push release style, which is pretty hard to find here in the US among USA made ratchets, so it's a good option if you're looking for something with that feature. It's not locking flex head, didn't even know it had this, but there's what appears to be like a polished piece of Delrin below the swivel joint that the head must be pressed into in order to also press that joint pin into the neck. It's not a bolt head, there's a pin in there, and this is just providing a constant, decent, fair amount of tension, like a polished Goldilocks feeling amount of tension. Its grip is probably my most preferred of the polished handle style so far, very comfortable, and just look at that head, it's miniature. This comes in with a total volume of 15.4 cc's, nowhere close to the others. Between this push release, which makes for a hollow drilled out anvil, and this micro ratchet head, it's probably not looking forward to meeting pushy. That would be my guess. But on the opposite side of things, the more delicate measurements, this does as well as you'd hope it would, looking like it does. It scores a 3 in one direction, and in the other direction, just over a 3, not quite 4. The best on the day. The Gearwrench back drag with a reading of 4 to 5 in one direction and often 5 to 6 in the other is going to average with a 5, still quite good overall. Let's take a look at ratchet swing. Tooth counts are cool because marketing, but also sort of useless as they're giving you just incomplete information with that. Due to popular viewer requests to include, we're doing swing count. With this setup, this ring on the right is height centered with the middle of the ratchet body, then number of swings to complete 360 degrees. The KTC Nepros completes the circle in 28 ratchet swings. Is that good? No real idea yet. The flex head snap-on does that same task, and a couple less than that, despite 90 tooth count versus 80 on this one. The FLF 80A comes in at 26 swings. The FHLL80, same mechanism. That snap-on does nearly the same. They use a bit larger shaft diameter due to being a longer tool, and that affects things slightly here with how much swing you're applying to it. 26.5 swings, which we got a couple times double checking. The Icon, either one in this case, both the flex head and the extended fixed head, did very well here. 27 swings even each time. A mixture of low back drag, good tooth count, not chunky. It does place well. The Gearwrench, and this is a result of the group it's in. I have an old no-name ratchet that took 37 swings on this test. The Gearwrench is going to require 30 swings, the most of the group today. Back to the Torture Tavern over here with Pushy all charged up and ready to play. Is this a make or break stat for a tool you're interested in? Basically, when it breaks, these all have lifetime warranties, so maybe not, but it is just going to be 20 to 25% of their score in the end with this. The Gearwrench is going to turn into a rocket ship and enter lower orbit at 367.5 newton meters. That's 271 foot-pounds, still well above like an engineering standard you might want to hit, which would be being north of 225 to 250. But in this group, it's looking a little bit lower. That is until we visit the poor tiny ratcheting head of the Nepros Japan here. That drilled out push-release anvil, less than 2/3 the size of many of these. You're gonna have to assume it's not gonna fare all that great in a till death to us part sort of test. This one gets 293, which is higher than I would have thought, then just rotates for a while without increasing. A new type of failure mode, probably one you'd prefer rather than your hands slamming forward maybe. The square drive is now just slowly twisting off. Considering the small mechanism didn't break inside and it's rotating off about that hollow center, I can't imagine how a solid non-push release of this same ratchet would do here if they made one. And in an odd turn of events here, the snap-on flex head is going to make a bit less torque than the fixed head, which is, I guess, in that self sort of expected, but it's going to be the same type of failure, sheared anvil. But that's odd because in our next example, the Icon flex head is going to make more than their fixed head model by an even slimmer margin, meaning it's both the most consistent and wasn't a fluke. 260 foot-pounds from the snap-on, and the Icon does a full swing extension and even has to go for a second go in order to break at 427.5 or 315 foot-pounds, the highest on the day. We all have our preferences and baked-in bias, but we try to do tests where we just push the buttons or report the data, and them's the numbers, folks. Let's see how the insides of these two tools compare, then we'll rank these tools based on their placements. Both the Icon and the Snap-on broke the same way. If you were someone who said these were designed the same way, and if you were someone who said they were designed differently, you'd probably be right in some ways in both cases. The Snap-on, 80-tooth anvil, rubber seal, dual pawl, W spring, then a bridge, ball bearing with a spring for the selector switch. The Icon, same sort of 80-tooth anvil, same rubber seal, but a single longer pawl, not a sprung dual pawl, and a two-piece bridge, and a hollow pin that captures a spring inside of it. The insides of this look a lot more Gearwrench than Snap-on in design, with that single long pawl and sprung hollow pin type. And the selector switch really didn't want to come out of the Icon. I broke the arm off of that selector trying to pry it out. That all said, the Snap-on replacement parts repair kit, parts that come inside of that, do all fit in the Icon. Selector switch, bridge, ball bearing, spring, W spring, the new dual pawls you're modifying it to, the drive end. Put some of that included super lube under this drive anvil, then in the works, and even the T10 torque screws are the same pitch and length. It all buttons up, so it doesn't seem like it was an accident, like the inside shape of this head was laser scanned, then recreated with some different parts put inside of it, some changes, or those parts that were just more available in Taiwan. So yes, you can put a USA-made head repair kit, part number RKR-F80, inside of your Icon ratchet, though I'm not quite sure why you would do it. It does become quieter, but as we showed, the Icon is already not any weaker, it appears. You're going to be down an extra $20 swapping this in, and you're tossing that away if you ever have to hand this across the counter for warranty replacement. As when breaking it in and measuring the back drag, it's still around a 5, so due to tolerances or otherwise, didn't make it down to 4 to match the OEM piece for whatever reason. All right, this has been a lot of yapping for a channel that focuses on the numbers. Here be those. They are ranked based on their outcomes compared to the others, and their peak torque to failure being just one of these beneficial things it's being scored on. Scores that are similar do get similar ranks accordingly, and this all averages lowest is best as 2.75 for the fixed head Icon, 2.25 for the Snap-on, 4 for the Gearwrench, 3 flat for the Icon Flex Head, 2.5 for the Nepros, and 3 for the Flex Head Snap-on, with the fixed head Snap-on in first due to its smaller head size and higher torque compared to their own flex head, making this the top fixed head option. But the KTC Nepros Japan, the highest placing flex head ratchet here, and the only one to earn a first place in more than one column as well. Followed closely by, Icon. They are good. 2 models here beating a $175 Snap-on, in this case with a 2.75 and a matching 3.0, but with some more gold, silver, and bronze medals in this one's case. Impressive stuff, and that's ignoring price, which we often do for lifetime warranty hand tools that, heck, you could pass on down to your kids someday. But we also wanted to show ranking with price as a snapshot picture of things, an idea you guys upvoted a lot in the comments. Ranking with the general price zones these fall into, this makes for a 3-way exact tie at the top with 2.6 points apiece for Icon, Nepros, and Snap-on, with Nepros being the only flex head to reach this top score. The Snap-on are just good ratchets. They're quiet, they're smooth, they do nothing poorly. The Nepros will fit into spots others may not, and the fit and finish and feel really pushes the limits on this sort of tool at $30 to $50 less than that Snap-on. And for half the price point, Icon Gen 2 seems to be a real effort, which is surprisingly rare to find in a retail store type of space. When you come to think about the top brands and hand ratchets in the US market, not oftentimes are you walking inside of a store to find those. The fact that we focused on some of the top in price of what people have recommended on our channel in today's episode and the Icon fit right in today, that's something all in itself. Appreciate you joining us for this. We make episodes like this every Friday. If you'd like to be shown those sometimes in your feed, you can click some buttons below, and thanks for watching.